everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning meditation class, which have been going on for, I think this is probably the 25th year. And actually, I began in Joe's office, their therapy office in Woodley Park in 2000 or 2001. I think it was 2000. Maybe even began in a little room in our house before that. But anyway, it's been going on a long time. And so this is offered by the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, IMCW, and the Center for Mindful Living, which is part of IMCW, but also very autonomous in terms of activities and programs and everything. And so warm welcome to everyone. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday and feeling somewhat rested and full. If you're not muted, just make sure you're muted. Just getting a bit of background here. So welcome to everyone, and just a little bit on the format of the class. We begin with a guided meditation, maybe 20 minutes or so guided meditation. Then Emily will lead us in some mindful movement. Thank you, Emily. And then we'll have a talk. Talk will be about 30 something minutes. And the theme today is something that the Buddha said. It said, one who understands clinging and non-clinging understands all the Dharma, understands all the teachings, and is able to free themselves from suffering. So that's what we'll be exploring today. And hopefully we'll have some time for some sharing after that, and some announcements to finish. So good to be with you today. And so just taking some time to come into a posture that's comfortable and relaxed. So sitting with your back straight, and maybe invite the shoulders to relax, letting the chest be open so that you can breathe easily. Closing your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Letting your attention come inward. You might consciously put aside, plans for what you want to do later or things that have happened earlier. And just let your attention be here with your experience as it is right now. And you could take a few longer, deeper breaths to help you settle and arrive. Nice, full, long, deep inhalation. Long, slow out breath. Releasing, letting go on the out breath. Breathing in, calming the body. And breathing out, calming the mind. The Buddha spoke of gladdening the mind, gladdening the heart. Just bringing some joy and gladness into the heart and the mind. One way we can do this is to consciously invite a smile or a half smile to your face. And the smile sends a message to our brain and to the nervous system that we can be relaxed, we can be at ease. Just letting the smile be the attitude or expression that you want to bring to your experience. Just meeting what's present with the attitude or the expression of a smile. And just letting the breath settle into its natural rhythm. And letting yourself be here right now. Making space for whatever is present in the body, in the heart, and in the mind. Not trying to control anything or make anything happen, but just bringing this receptive awareness to what's present right now. And you could let your attention rest on the breath, the experience of breathing in and breathing out. As a way of focusing your attention, letting yourself be here and aware of being here. Breathing in, knowing that you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing that you're breathing out. And when you notice that the mind has moved into thinking, planning, remembering, worrying, daydreaming, whatever it is, just gently and kindly let the attention come back to the body and the breath. In breath and out breath. if a strong feeling or sensation or emotion comes up that calls for your attention, you can consciously bring your awareness to that. Let's say it's a feeling of sadness. You could just notice where you're feeling that in your body and make space for whatever sensations are present. Might be some pulsing or warmth, tingling, whatever is present. Just allow the sensations to come and go, making space for what's here. And if thoughts come up, could be a thought, oh, this is going to last forever. You can just notice that and just let go of the thought. Stay with the feeling as long as it's calling for your attention. Just meet it with kindness, with acceptance. And if it passes or lessens, you could just let your attention come back to the body and the breath. Come back to your anchor. Just making space for whatever is present, whatever's arising for you. Can this moment be a moment of peace, a moment of joy, a moment of freedom? Putting aside the past, the future, just resting in this moment and what's present right now. and always being able to begin again, no matter how long the attention has been gone for or how often. You can just come back to this moment, this breath, this feeling, this moment without judgment. We'll finish with this poem by Lynn Unger, The Way It Is. One morning you might wake up to realize that the knot in your stomach had loosened itself and slipped away, and that the pit of unfilled longing in your heart had gradually, and without you really noticing, been filled in, patched like a pothole, not quite the same as it was, but good enough. And in that moment it might occur to you that your life, though not the way you planned it, and maybe not even entirely the way you wanted it, is nonetheless persistently, abundantly, miraculously, exactly what it is. So take your time coming back, opening your eyes, coming back into the group. Welcome to anyone who joined us since we began. And we're going to have Emily lead us in some movement. So thank you, Emily.
Good morning, everyone. Such a beautiful meditation. Let me invite you to just stand up and sway, or if you're staying seated, just shift from side to side, noticing the balance of the body and its space. Take a moment to see the horizon line, just the space around you, and then open up and flow from one side to the other, bringing that dynamic flow into your arms. Perhaps you're lifting the opposite heel as you turn in one direction. And then lifting your arms up, open wide to greet the light. Inhale up again. Exhale, soften your shoulders and your elbows. Then grasp your left wrist in your right hand. And inhale, extending up and over to the right. You could rest your head against that upper arm. Breathing into the left rib cage. Exhale, soften. Allow your body, your right shoulder to soften, and your right elbow. And then lift up. Switch wrists and up and over to the left. Extending out that right side. Breathing into the right rib cage. Exhale, soften the left shoulder, left elbow. Inhale, lift up. Floating the arms down. Draw your arms out in front of you, the right wrist on top of the left, and then turn your hands so they clasp. We're going to greet infinity, drawing the symbol of infinity with our arms, extended arms. It's a sideways figure 8. Just flowing with this movement, noticing the freedom of your neck as you shift, and then come to center and draw it the other way. Waking up the brain, allowing this moment to be free of clinging, non-judging, allowing your personal critic to let go. Drop the arms down and draw the energy up under your arms. Let go. Drawing up the energy again. Letting go. Shake it out. We're going to the other side, the left wrist on top of the right. Clasp the hands. Breathing here and draw that figure 8. Just allowing the hips, the sides of the body to flow. And then reverse direction. Come to center, let go. Swing your arms back, doing a backstroke. And the forward stroke. Let's just do 2 more moves. Flat back, coming into a flat back. Legs, feet are a little wider than hip distance apart, and we're extending the spine. Really pressing with your feet to energize your legs. And then if you'd like to, you could drop down further, become a rag doll, or stay with the extended spine as you breathe. It's your choice, your back, your spine, your moment to choose. Breathing here. Exhale, seeing if you could soften just a little bit more. with the exhale. And then slowly place your hands above your knees and start stacking the vertebrae, rising up, shoulders up to your ears, and let go. Find your mountain pose. Drawing our hands above our head, centering. And now take a bow, everyone. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you, Emily. That's wonderful, as always. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. So again, welcome everyone, anyone who joined us more recently. The talk today is on a quote from, we begin with a quote from the Buddha, one who understands clinging and non-clinging, understands all the Dharma. This, I think, is a very powerful statement of the Buddha. It's not just, a throwaway line of like, oh, this is, somewhat important teaching. When I hear that, I hear the Buddha saying, this is really something to pay attention to. This question of clinging and abandoning clinging is something to really pay attention to in your life, in our lives, because it makes the difference really between happiness and freedom on one hand and being kind of caught up in the cycle of suffering on the other, where we wash, rinse, repeat kind of thing. We think getting the thing that we cling to or, crave is going to make us happy, but it actually only increases our suffering, increases the intensity of the craving. It kind of reinforces it rather than frees ourselves from it. So this is what I want to explore today. And the statement is really a direct reference to the Buddha's central teachings of the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. And this focuses on the second and the third noble truth. Clinging or craving is understood in Buddhist teachings to be the cause or the kind of proximate or primary cause of suffering. And I'll go into kind of what that means in a few minutes. But craving or clinging, as I use those kind of interchangeably. You can think of craving as kind of moving out towards something that we want. I want this, I want this thing that I like that tastes so good. I'm craving it. Clinging has more of a sense of kind of holding on to something that we've had. So, thinking of it as craving / clinging, I think is a helpful thing. But also recognizing that it includes the pushing away as well, pushing away the things we don't like. So it's not just about the things we do like, but pushing away the other side of the coin, really, pushing away, resisting, avoiding, pushing away the things we don't like. And there's a third category, which is, it's the often called greed, hatred, and delusion, which are kind of strong words, but the greed more, the pulling, the aversion or the hatred sometimes used as like the pushing away. I don't like this, I don't want this. And the delusion is just kind of confusion often it's about escaping or disconnecting. And these three, they're often called the three poisons in Buddhism: greed, aversion, and delusion. So in the teachings, the craving leads to suffering, and the abandoning of craving, this is the third noble truth, leads to freedom. As Ajahn Chah said, it could be a lot of freedom, it could be a little freedom. He said, let go a little and you'll experience a little freedom, a little peace in your life. Let go a lot and you'll experience a lot of peace, a lot of freedom. Let go completely and you'll experience complete freedom, complete peace in your life. Your struggle with the world will be at an end. And the teachings really point to the possibility of a complete ending of suffering, that we can live a life untroubled by suffering. We'll still have pain in our life, we'll still have sickness, we'll have aging and death ultimately. But we won't have to, or we don't have to experience these as suffering. We can experience them as just, well, this is how things are. It's not easy, and maybe it's painful, but there isn't suffering. There's not kind of the added element of resistance that the Buddha talks about as suffering. So the Buddha's teachings about these Four Noble Truths begin with suffering, that we experience different things as being in life, as being painful, as being unpleasant, as being stressful, undesired. The Buddha said sickness, aging, death, are suffering. Not getting what we want is suffering. Getting what we don't want is suffering. All of these are different expressions of the word in Pali, the Pali language, the first written language of the Buddha's written teachings, is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. And I think a better word for dukkha, a better word than suffering, which is kind of like has lots of different meanings. Better word for me, I think, is unsatisfactoriness. Things are unsatisfactory. They're not the way we want them to be. So what we do is most of us, the humans, our tendency is to experience things like sickness, aging, death, not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, being stuck in a traffic jam, or having a boss at work that we feel is mean or bossy, or worrying about whether we're going to pay our bills, or feeling sick. We tend to experience these things, these situations, these experiences as unpleasant, unsatisfactory. Philip Moffitt, who teaches out on the West Coast at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, wrote a book on the Four Noble Truths called Dancing with Life. It's a very, very good book. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it strongly. He talked about suffering. He described it as an unavoidable reality of ordinary human existence that is to be known and responded to wisely. An unavoidable reality of ordinary human experience. And what he's meaning there is the tendency of people who haven't practiced letting go is to experience these things as suffering, is to, there's nothing in a traffic jam, being in a traffic jam, that is inherently suffering. But it's very easy to think of it as suffering. Oh, I've got an appointment to go to, and I'm going to be late. And somebody, the person I'm meeting with is going to think badly of me because I'm late, and all of these things add the suffering. But the suffering isn't inherent in the experience itself. Being sick, for example, isn't itself suffering. We could be sick. We could experience the heat and the fever and the pain and all of that. We could experience that as, it's painful, but we don't add anything to it. It doesn't have to be suffering. We can be sick without suffering. We can experience pain without suffering. You're probably familiar with that saying, that aphorism or whatever it's called. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering is what we have a choice over. We don't have a choice about the fact that, if we bang our arm into a wall or something, unless there's something wrong with us, that we'll feel pain. But whether we experience suffering with that is really a question in the Buddhist understanding of whether we add resistance to the experience. I remember about 15 years ago going to Tara Brach's class, and she had a guest teacher who was a monk, whose name is Bhante Rahula, same name as the Buddha's son, Rahula. And he gave a kind of what I think of as a clever formula for suffering. He said, suffering is pain multiplied by resistance. Pain multiplied by resistance. So, for example, if you have 5 units of pain and 2 units of resistance, you multiply those together and you get 10 units of suffering. Excuse me. 10 units of suffering. But if you have 10 units of pain, that is twice as much suffering, but no resistance, what do you get? All the math students here. 10 multiplied by 0 equals 0. So, even though you have more pain, you have less suffering because there's no resistance to it. You're not adding the resistance to it. And I think of that, it's obviously somewhat simplistic, but it's also kind of gives you the sense that the suffering, this optional part, makes a big difference of whether we add the suffering to our, the pain that is an inevitable part of our lives. So the key thing, I think, really to understand in the Buddhist teachings about suffering and how we can live freely is that if there's suffering, there's some way that we are involved in or implicated in our suffering. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to say that we should be blaming ourselves or judging ourselves or thinking, oh, I'm a terrible person because I'm suffering. When I'm saying that we're implicated, it just means there's something that we're doing or not doing, or something that we're seeing or not seeing, that is causing the suffering. There's a kind of an add-on. There's something we're bringing to the suffering. So, for example, we're believing that this experience or this situation or this person should be different than it is. This traffic jam, this shouldn't be happening. Why is everybody out here clogging the roads, keeping me from getting to where I'm wanting to go? This line shouldn't be so long. This person shouldn't be taking so long with, their groceries, whatever. Or this politician, shouldn't be doing what he or she or they, are doing. Or this pain should be different. This should be gone by now. What we're doing is we're believing that our happiness lies in the situation being different. But it's not the situation that will bring us happiness. It's not like getting the thing that we want or getting rid of the thing that we don't want that's going to bring us happiness. What's going to bring us happiness, the Buddha teaches, is letting go of that clinging, letting go of that holding on, letting go of that second arrow that we're bringing to our experience. So when we struggle with reality, this is what I think of it as, is that suffering is some way struggling with or resisting the way things are, the way life is, at the moment. When we resist life as it is, we suffer. If we're fighting with, oh, it's a cold day and I wanted it to be a warm day, and we get caught up in, woe is me, this is not how I wanted today to be, then this is what we're adding. We're adding this to the suffering. It's not an inevitable part of the situation. The inevitable part of the situation is, if it's raining, it's raining. If it's snowing, it's snowing. If it's warm, it's warm. That's the reality. But our suffering depends on what we add to that experience. The Jesuit philosopher and writer and teacher Anthony de Mello defined enlightenment as absolute cooperation with the inevitable. Absolute cooperation with the inevitable. And that's really, I think, can be a good an encouragement to live our lives cooperating with the inevitable, cooperating with the unavoidable. Because if we don't cooperate with the inevitable, we'll inevitably suffer. If we don't cooperate with the way things are. Wanting things to be different than they are is really at the heart of our suffering. Now, often when, if I or somebody else were to say this, somebody might respond, well, does this mean we don't change things that need to be changed? We don't, if we see something unjust or harmful, that we just say, oh, that's just the way it is, we don't have to do anything about this. No, it's not about accepting the, things, harmful things, and, saying it doesn't matter if we do anything about it. But what it does say is that that it's wise to change what we can change, as in the serenity prayer of, may I have the, accept, how does it go? Accept what I can't change, change what I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. That it's helpful, and it can be wise to change what we can change if it's unjust, if it's harmful. But we need to do it from a place of acceptance that the reality of the situation right now is this. I'm going to do whatever I can to change it, if I can change it. But if I bring the energy of anger and hatred into trying to change anything, then I'll just perpetuate suffering. So it's not about not changing anything, but it's about accepting how things are and then working to change what can be changed from there. So this teaching about clinging and non-clinging, how does understanding clinging and non-clinging lead to understanding all the Dharma? Well, when we deeply understand our own role in our suffering, this is what this teaching is about. That is, that wanting things to be different than they are, wanting things that we don't have, wanting or resisting life as it is, that this ties us to suffering. When we deeply understand our role in our suffering, this allows us to let go. When we see clearly, by holding on to wanting things to be the way I want them to be, seeing how this only perpetuates suffering. We can think, you can see it, clearly with, situations of addiction. If we're addicted to a drink or drug or substance, there's the illusion in the mind that having that thing that we want is going to bring us happiness or bring us some kind of comfort or make us feel better. And for a little while it may well do. But what it actually does, as we know, is it keeps us locked into that cycle of suffering. The more we do it, the stronger that pull to do it is. So to actually see how our clinging, how holding on or pushing away experience leads to suffering, provides us with the opportunity to let go of clinging. I've shared once or twice before of just, something was simple in my own life that I saw the possibility of changing. I had my dad died, fairly young, and it was over 40 years ago. And we were, in a lot of struggle, I think, in the years. I was pretty young at the time and thought I knew everything. And we were kind of at loggerheads. And I had some judgments about, choices he'd made in his life. And, in the years after he died, I tended to look at him through the lens of judgment, through, he should have done this, and, judgment, blame. And I saw over time, how my own judgment and blame kind of created suffering for me, created distance and separation and a feeling of disconnection from him. And, I was able, and it took me quite a long time to get to this place, to kind of reflect on that and think, this isn't doing me any good. It isn't serving me. It's only creating separation. Wouldn't it be helpful to kind of change the frame of that, look in a different way, look at, through understanding of his life and the choices he had to face, look through the eyes of compassion and kind of see that he was, there were conditions and, situations that led to him making certain choices, and to understand that. And the more I could do that, the more I could let go of my own suffering. That I could see that my clinging to a certain view of him and his life and his choices was actually leading me to suffering, leading me to, experience unsatisfactoriness, a sense of separation, aversion. And seeing that clearly, it was possible to let go and kind of say, okay. And, in the same way as if we forgive people, somebody who has, done something to us that has caused us suffering, that we see that whatever we're holding on to is the cause of our suffering. So to see the possibility of letting go, and then when we let go, there's a sense of freedom. That's not it's not the absolute, the complete freedom that the Buddha's pointing to, but it can be. It can point to that freedom, that complete freedom that the Buddha says is the end of suffering, the complete end of suffering. So it's not as though we have to get rid of part of ourselves when we abandon clinging. We just have to stop throwing fuel on the fire, by thinking, repeating things over and over again, that we're thinking we're gonna, this is going to make us happy. So the way we work with the clinging is to just bring awareness to our experience in the present moment. Let the sensations that are present, feelings, emotions, thoughts, let them come and go without acting on them, without pushing them away, without clinging to them. Simply being with our experience as it is, letting everything come and go. And in that way, as the Tibetan Buddhists say, those feelings, those energies, those emotions self-liberate. They free themselves. If we can just be aware of them, we can be aware of the anger, but not act upon the anger, then it kind of frees itself. The energy of that anger comes and goes because we're not holding on to it, or we're not acting it out in the world. We're just letting what's here be here, letting it come, letting it go. So again, one who understands clinging really understands the source of suffering, and understanding non-clinging, really understanding the possibility of ending suffering by abandoning clinging. For the Buddha, this was the most important thing for us to understand. It's really the difference between a life of freedom where we abandon clinging and a life of suffering where we keep doing the same thing over and over again and thinking we're going to get a different result. So the complete freedom that comes from abandoning clinging. Really, life becomes, once we have let go of clinging, life becomes unproblematical. We're no longer shaken and assailed by life's worldly winds. There's still sickness, aging, death, loss. All of those continue, but we don't have to suffer on account of them. This is why the end of suffering is often called, in Buddhist teachings, is called the deathless, because what's realized, it doesn't die. The physical death, yes, we'll all die, but there doesn't have to be suffering in it. So the doorway to understanding clinging and non-clinging comes through the present moment, through how we meet our experience here and now. So how do we go about seeing where we're clinging and how we can let go of clinging? How we do that is moment to moment, just meeting our experience and noticing, oh, right now I'm holding on to something. I'm wanting this to be different. I'm wanting this person to be different, this situation to be different. In that way, I'm clinging to, I'm looking for happiness where it can't be found. And so the way out of our suffering, the way out of the clinging is to stay with our experience, just to let the feelings come and go. Let the thoughts come, not act on them, not reinforce them by, yes, this person's a terrible person and, they ought to blah, 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 terrible things should happen to them. When those thoughts come up, just let them go. Don't throw fuel on the fire. So for the Buddha, mindfulness of our experience in the body and the heart and the mind, he said, mindfulness is the direct path to liberation. Just being aware of what is present, seeing the impermanence of all of these experiences, the emotions, the bodily feelings, the sensations, the thoughts, they all come and go. And if we don't get tangled up in them, then they can just pass in their own time. Other teachers too, some contemporary teachers of awakening, point in the same way to the present moment as the doorway to awakening. Here's the way that Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now, put it. He says, make the now the primary focus of your life. Always say yes to the present moment. What could be more futile, more insane, than to create inner resistance to something that already is? This is the clinging, creating inner resistance to what already is, what is here. What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is always now, which is now and always now? Surrender to what is. Say yes to life, and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you. Say yes to life. So saying yes to life, absolute cooperation with how life is unfolding right now. He says, goes on to say, he says, now is the most precious thing there is. Firstly, because it is the only thing. It's all there is. There was never a time when your life was not now, nor will there ever be. Secondly, the now is the only point that can take you beyond the limited confines of the mind. It's the only point of access into the timeless and formless realm of being. So he's saying the same as the Buddha, that it's through the present moment, by being fully present here and now, this awareness, present moment awareness, brings us, it helps us see clearly into just how life is, that everything is changing, that nothing can be held onto, that none of this is permanently I or mine. And when we see this clearly, this leads to letting go. And letting go is the freedom that the Buddha points to. Clinging, one who understands clinging and non-clinging, understands all of the teachings. One final quote from Eckhart Tolle. He says, you can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. You know, how much suffering do we experience in our life when we're caught up in the future? You know, when we're stressed or anxious or worried. It's not about what's happening right now. You know, it's about what is the mind is creating, the story about what will happen in the future. You know, if we can stay with the direct experience here and now and let go of the future, then we can let go of, you know, that clinging. But that story of the future, being caught up in that story of the future, is the way we get, you know, locked into the clinging that the Buddha speaks about. Tolle says, always come back to the now. There is no salvation in time. You cannot be free in the future. Presence is the key to freedom. So you can only be free now. All that you've ever have to deal with, cope with in real life, as opposed to imaginary mind projections, is this moment. Ask yourself, what problem do you have right now? Not next year, tomorrow, or 5 minutes from now. What is wrong with this moment? What is wrong with this moment? You know. So I'd just like to finish off with a few questions to make this as real and as concrete as possible. Firstly is, where do you experience suffering, unsatisfactoriness, this, confusion, doubt, this sense of things being other than the way you want them to be in your life. Is there an area of your life where you find that predominant? You find you're complaining about your work, or a particular relationship, a partner or a family member. They should be different than they are, and you find yourself caught up in suffering around that. Where do you experience suffering? Because we need to become familiar with the dukkha, with the suffering in our lives. Where do you experience it? And then the second question is, if there's suffering present, what are you holding on to? Or what are you believing that is helping perpetuate your suffering? There's often, when we look at it, there's often a story in our mind that this situation should be different. This person should be different. If we look at the political situation right now, many people are caught up in anger and despair and outrage and lots of different, reactions. And it's very helpful to distinguish between, what we think of as, this is harmful, these are harmful actions, and it would be good for me to do whatever I can to change these. But where in there am I being caught up in some story in my mind that this person they shouldn't be doing this? And whenever we get caught up in those beliefs and those mind states, then we'll suffer. And this is the clinging that keeps us tied to suffering. And if we can see that clearly, rather than this person should be different, acting differently, doing things differently than they are, what about if we said, this is how things are right now? Can I be with this moment as it is? Can I be with this experience? And from that place of acceptance of this experience, of how things are right now, then can I do whatever I can to change it? Can I, take action to bring about a change in the reality? But I'm not doing it then from a place of this person is this or that, and this bad thing should happen to them, all of this. So what happens when you bring awareness with kindness to what is difficult or painful or unpleasant or worrying or confusing? What happens when you meet that experience? Say, yes, this is what's here right now. I'm feeling tight, feeling tense. I'm aware of thoughts in my mind that I don't like this. I want it to be different. And we open to that and we allow ourselves to fully experience what we're experiencing. What happens then? Can you experience any freedom from letting go of what you're holding on to? Can you let go of that belief, that's the story in your mind, that this situation, this person, this experience should be different than they are? So I'll pause there.